broken. This for three main reasons. The first reason is that we assist to the erosion of international norms, and this erosion of international norms is both within countries, deterioration of democracy, direct challenge to democracy. This challenge of international norms takes place also at the level of international organizations, international regimes, and the basic norms of international law. The second reason is that this challenge comes particularly from within the West. So contrary to what we frequently claim, it's not the rest of the world representing the main challenge, but it's actors within the West. And it can be leading actors like the United States, it can be actors within Europe, and it can be transversal actors. I can think, for instance, of the transnational hyper-conservative network, which is very powerful and also very challenging with respect to international norms. And the third reason is that the rest of the world is not really representing an alternative. So if the liberal international order is challenged, we do not have an alternative proposal coming from the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is fragmented and without a broad strategy on how to define the terms of relations in the broader international system.
I have been fascinated by the title of the conference, which is 404 Not Found, A Broken World. The international relation theories, as it stands now, cannot make sense of the emergence of the Global South, because the Global South is not made of a bunch of sovereign states looking for a sphere of influence. There is no common leadership, no common value, no common language, no common religious, no common system or anything that international relation theory used to understand sovereign state. So that becomes a problem for international relation theory. Now we need to do more research in order to understand how these people without the same ideology, ethnicity, or religious beliefs come together and coexist for centuries in order to enlighten our international relation theory.
The international system is broken, and it's been broken for some time now. The only reason why we haven't seen it is because there was a camouflage of international rules, norm, practices, and rhetorical practices that serve as a mask, as a veneer to cover up the brokenness of the international system. That veneer has now been removed. And at the moment, the US is now charging for the public good that is providing for the international system. And more importantly, the US is not only charging other countries for the public goods it's providing for the international system, but charging its friends in the way that demeans them, in the way that to some extent undermine the widely held sensibilities of the international system.
The current international scenario looks like it's broken because we're seeing liberal norms of restraint and humanitarian action being widely disregarded. But if you think international order always consisted of multiple patterns of extraction, of nationalism, of exclusion, then some of those patterns are actually strengthening rather than breaking down. The ones that we see weakening are the ones relating to solidarity and rules and redistribution. And so whilst the international order may be changing as different tendencies become stronger and weaker, it's not breaking down as a logic of organized behavior.
Well, we all have to choose at least one way to go about it. There's the so-called polycrisis, in which we have increasing inequalities, militarization of international affairs, democratic backsliding, and the climate change. So my take will be on diplomacy. So in order to integrate the vast number of new emerging, as they call it, states, for rethinking in the world order that is no longer just a northern world order, it is important to think about the conditions under which we accept people into states, into the international society, and this is renegotiated. And diplomacy is about this. Diplomacy is about this attempt to find the common shared understandings of who can be a member, where denial can happen, and which components can become visible and should not stay invisible in this international environment. And diplomacy is difficult because it has to happen when it is least possible. There's a paradox of diplomacy, that in times of war, of crisis, It needs to be there, but it is least feasible. And I think it is important to think about politics of translation in order to understand or to get through a new diplomacy which is really needed for this world order. A translation that could be based on hospitality, as Bashir Soleiman Diagne calls it.